even worse. And it's hard to find doctors around here who take private physicians, who take Medicaid patients. They don't want to take them. I mean, Medicare.
They don't take people like me either.
And see, and you're on Medicare now, and this is a good point. The Mayo Clinic. You know, I think we all heard of the Mayo Clinic, a very high quality, lower cost healthcare provider out of Minnesota. They're a national network now. But a couple months ago, 2 months ago, they announced that they were not going to take any more Medicare payments at their facilities in Arizona. I think Glendale, Arizona. Now, because they said they lost system-wide, they lost $800 million last year on Medicare. Point being, having coverage, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, or some other place, does not necessarily guarantee you access to the physician.
Medicare and insurance.
And you have supplemental. Wow. I mean, and that's.
I've been 5 years out of primary.
Well, let's see. That's one of the big issues that we're seeing in healthcare. This cost shift that has much of that cost is then transferred. I think we all understand when a person shows up at the emergency room at Sacred Heart or Lehigh Valley or St. Luke's, show up there, they have no coverage. I think we all understand that when that person has no coverage or is underinsured, that the cost to treat that individual is then spread to those of us who do have coverage, and that puts an upward pressure on our
nationalized health care.
What's that?
That's nationalized health care.
But the same is true for Medicare and Medicaid. I mean, because of the underpayment issue, to cover that cost, it's shifting, and that's actually probably a bigger shift, but not as well understood. And
well, this nationalized health care, how's this going to work? Who's going to pay for it? I mean, they're going to cover everybody. Somebody's got to pay for it. It's not, and the other thing is, if it's so great, why aren't Congress and the Senate going to take the nationalized health care? Why do they have their own special health care? I don't think it's going to work because the companies after a while aren't even going to be giving the, you said, yeah, you can keep your own health care. Well, after a while, they won't even want to pay for that anymore.
Well, part of the reason I voted against the health care laws because there are two competing goals in health care reform. A noble goal of universal coverage, and the other important goal of cost control. A law that was enacted by the Congress deals with universal coverage, but does not deal with cost control. And that's why I believe you are going to see deficits skyrocket. I mean, I know you heard this. You heard the news. They said the CBO said that over 10 years we'll save $138 billion on the deficit. Well, it's more likely that some guy's going to drop from space and land in this parking lot here in the next 10 minutes, and then that we will not run deficits. We will run deficits, and I'll explain why that will happen. But because there's no cost control built into this reform, virtually none, and you guarantee, and you basically are providing universal coverage through an individual mandate. By the way, we have 3 million people in this country who are not rich, who are going to be paying taxes on that. That's a tax, up to 2.5% of your income. They're not rich, and they're going to be paying a lot of money. So you have a mandate there on the individual, you have a mandate there on the employer side, and so you put more people into the system. What it also does too, it expands the Medicaid program, Medicaid, not Medicare, Medicaid, from 100% of poverty to 133% of poverty. That's what they did. Now in the Senate, they did it, and they exempted one state, Nebraska. Courthouse for kickback, that you're talking about. They exempted Nebraska. Then the public rose up and said, "Hey, that's wrong. That's unfair. That's an outrage." People. It was an awful thing. And what they did for Nebraska, and then the way they fixed it, which I think is even just as appalling. They took that deal for Nebraska and gave it to every other state. And the deal for Nebraska was essentially any new costs associated with the Medicaid expansion would be borne by the federal government. Right now, Medicaid's paid partly by the federal government, partly by the state government. 50-50, a little more federal than state. But that was kind of the arrangement. But the point is, okay, if doctors right now, and dentists for sure, are not seeing people on Medicaid, by expanding Medicaid, how will that get more